My name is Mark, and this is my second day of doing soldier's memoirs. In the last installment, I told you about the problems I encountered while going through training before being sent to the front. In this installment, I'm going to tell you about something more scary. Listen to the story carefully. The morning arrived with a mixture of dread and anticipation. I awoke to the sound of trucks idling outside, the low rumble vibrating gently through the ground beneath my cot. Today was the day we moved closer to the front line. Every movement felt heavier, every breath thicker with uncertainty. I quickly dressed and stepped outside, joining a line of soldiers already climbing into the vehicles. Captain Harris was organizing everyone, his voice calm yet assertive. I caught his glance briefly, receiving a reassuring nod. It eased some of the tension gripping my chest. I climbed into a truck, immediately noticing a soldier seated across from me. He appeared seasoned, older than most around us, with tired eyes and deep lines carved into his face. He introduced himself quietly, extending a rough, calloused hand. "I'm Alex," he said with a faint, weary smile. "Been out here over a year now. Got a short leave home and now heading back." I shook his hand firmly. "Mark," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "First time heading to the front line." Alex nodded knowingly, his expression a mixture of empathy and quiet sadness. "First time's always the hardest," he murmured, adjusting his helmet. "You'll learn to adapt, but the beginning is never easy." As the truck began moving, the landscape passed by slowly, a desolate expanse scarred by conflict. I felt compelled to fill the silence, hoping to calm my nerves. "What's it like up there?" Alex's gaze drifted toward the horizon, a shadow passing over his features. "It's brutal," he finally said, his voice heavy. "We've faced days without food, sometimes barely water. Ammunition shortages are common. You learn quickly how to survive with next to nothing." I swallowed hard, his words intensifying the unease twisting my stomach. He must have sensed my discomfort because he turned back to me, his voice softer now. "But it's not hopeless. You learn who you truly are. You discover strength you never knew you had. And more importantly, you realize you're never truly alone." The other soldiers in the truck nodded silently, offering their silent agreement. Despite their weary appearances, their presence brought me some small comfort. These were the men I would be fighting alongside, the men whose lives would soon intertwine deeply with mine. I leaned back, trying to steady my nerves, but Alex's words lingered in my mind. I watched the barren landscape pass by, wondering what awaited us ahead and if I'd have the strength Alex spoke of to survive it. The truck continued its slow journey, jolting uncomfortably along rough, uneven roads. Each bump echoed through my bones, amplifying the tension in my muscles. I glanced around at the other soldiers, faces solemn, eyes distant, each absorbed in their own thoughts. Alex broke the silence again, perhaps sensing my lingering anxiety. "You know, Mark, the hardest thing isn't the fighting itself, it's the waiting," he said softly, staring ahead as if revisiting distant memories. "Days pass when nothing happens. You're just sitting there, waiting, the silence pressing in on you. That's when your mind starts playing tricks." I nodded slowly, absorbing his words. The idea of waiting, helplessly anticipating danger, seemed even more terrifying than active combat. "How do you deal with it?" I asked quietly, genuinely curious. Alex turned, offering a faint, tired smile. "Routine. Focus on small tasks. Clean your gear, check your supplies, help your comrades. Anything to keep your mind occupied. The routine keeps you sane." Around us, soldiers murmured quietly, some nodding in agreement. A young soldier beside me, whose name tag read Jackson, leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Alex is right. When supplies run low, it tests your patience and strength. You learn to stretch rations, conserve ammunition. Sometimes hunger gnaws at your thoughts until it consumes you." Jackson was younger than me, yet his eyes reflected experiences far beyond his age. I felt a pang of sympathy mixed with dread at the thought of enduring such deprivation. "But we look out for each other," Jackson added firmly, noticing my unease. "That's how we survive, by standing together." Alex placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone here, Mark. No matter what happens, we look after each other. You'll see." His words, simple yet profoundly comforting, settled some of my doubts. The atmosphere in the truck shifted slightly, as if a silent bond had formed among us. For the first time, despite the harsh realities awaiting us, I felt a sense of belonging. We were heading toward the unknown, but we would face it together. The truck finally halted, the sudden silence deafening after hours of relentless engine noise. We stepped out into an atmosphere charged with tension, the distant sounds of explosions, a harsh reminder of the reality that awaited us. My heart hammered violently in my chest, adrenaline mixing with anxiety. Captain Harris approached, his presence alone bringing immediate calm. Standing firm amidst chaos, he embodied an unspoken strength. His gaze swept across us, instilling courage and resolve. "Men," he began, voice clear and resolute. "The enemy awaits us, fierce and relentless. They will test our courage, challenge our strength, and push us beyond our limits. But we are stronger than fear, greater than doubt. We've trained for this moment. We are prepared." A quiet determination filled the ranks, soldiers standing taller, shoulders squared with newfound confidence. Captain Harris continued, his voice rising slightly with passion. "We fight today not just to survive, but for each other, for those we left behind. We fight because we must, because we choose to stand against darkness." His words resonated deeply within me, igniting a fierce determination I hadn't known existed. Beside me, Alex stood straighter, eyes burning with quiet fire. He turned toward me, nodding with conviction. "This is it, Mark. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." A wave of pride surged within me, drowning the earlier dread. The soldiers around me, once weary and uncertain, now stood united, bonded by a shared sense of purpose. Whatever awaited us beyond the horizon, we would face it together. "Let's move out," Captain Harris commanded firmly, leading us toward our fate. Every step forward felt deliberate, meaningful, powerful. We marched as one, ready to meet whatever lay ahead with unwavering resolve and indomitable spirit. We moved quickly toward the front line, the distant sounds of explosions growing louder with every step. My heart raced in rhythm with the escalating chaos, the previous confidence from Captain Harris's speech still present but tested by the looming reality. Soon, we reached a series of reinforced bunkers and trenches, where we quickly took shelter. The air was thick with smoke, dirt, and the acrid scent of gunpowder, each breath feeling heavier than the last. Soldiers moved with disciplined urgency, following orders and preparing for immediate action. Captain Harris gathered us inside one of the bunkers, illuminated only by flickering lanterns, casting long, ominous shadows. "This position is crucial," he stated firmly, his voice steady despite the distant roar of combat. "Our objective is clear. Hold this line at all costs. Every soldier here matters. Every action you take counts." His intense gaze swept across us, finally settling on Alex and me. "Alex, you'll guide Mark and a small team to reinforce the left flank. Stay vigilant, conserve ammunition, and communicate clearly." Alex nodded sharply, accepting the responsibility with practiced confidence. I felt a rush of pride mixed with anxiety at the critical task assigned to us. Captain Harris gave a final nod, his eyes silently reinforcing his trust in our abilities. "Let's move," Alex commanded decisively, signaling our small team to follow him. We quickly exited the bunker, entering the trenches where the noise of warfare was deafening. The earth shook beneath us, and each step felt precarious and uncertain, As we navigated the muddy paths toward our assigned position, Alex glanced back at me, his eyes resolute yet cautious. "Stay close, Mark," he shouted over the chaotic symphony of warfare. "Things are about to get intense. Stay calm, focus on the mission, and remember, you're not alone." With his words echoing through my mind, we pressed forward into uncertainty, ready to defend our comrades and fulfill our duty. We swiftly arrived at our position, immediately confronted by chaos unlike anything I'd imagined. The ground trembled violently beneath us as explosions erupted nearby, throwing dirt and debris into the air. The crackle of gunfire and screams of urgency filled my ears, blurring together into a terrifying symphony of war. Alex quickly took control, his voice rising above the chaos, steady yet urgent. "Take cover! Hold your positions!" he commanded sharply, guiding each of us into strategic points along the trench. I crouched behind a battered sandbag barrier, gripping my weapon tightly, heart pounding wildly in my chest. Bullets whizzed overhead, dangerously close, each sharp crack slicing through my nerves. Fear surged through me, icy and paralyzing, making my breath come in ragged gasps. I glanced over at Alex, drawing strength from his calm, unyielding presence amid the turmoil. Suddenly, a deafening blast erupted close by, and for a moment, everything went silent. Disoriented, my vision blurred by smoke and dust, I struggled to regain my bearings. As the haze cleared slightly, my heart seized at the sight before me. Alex lay sprawled in the mud, clutching his leg, face contorted in agony. "Alex!" I shouted desperately, scrambling toward him despite the danger. Reaching his side, I saw the severity of his injury, a deep, gruesome wound on his leg, blood rapidly soaking his uniform. "Hold on, Alex," I pleaded frantically, trying to steady my trembling hands as I fumbled with the first aid kit. His breathing was shallow, face pale from shock and pain. "Mark," Alex gasped weakly, gripping my arm tightly, eyes filled with both agony and determination. "Stay strong. Protect the others." My hands shook uncontrollably as I applied pressure, fighting desperately to stem the bleeding. The chaos around us faded into a distant blur as panic surged through me, my mind racing for a solution. "Medic!" I screamed desperately, hoping my voice could reach someone, anyone who could help. "We need help now." In that agonizing moment, every promise of camaraderie and survival echoed hauntingly through my mind. Alex's pain-filled gaze locked onto mine, silently pleading, trusting me to save him. I fought back tears, vowing silently that I wouldn't let him down, no matter what it took. Seconds stretched painfully into eternity as I pressed desperately on Alex's wound, feeling his life slipping slowly between my fingers. His skin had grown pale and clammy, each shallow breath a battle he was losing. Around us, the chaos raged on, indifferent to our personal agony. "Stay with me, Alex," I begged, my voice trembling, desperate tears blurring my vision. "You're going to be all right. We're getting you out of here." Alex's gaze locked onto mine, filled with pain but carrying a quiet, heartbreaking resignation. His voice was weak but firm, fighting through the agony. "Mark, whatever happens, you must promise me. You'll make it home. You have to promise." His words cut deeply into my soul, each syllable a burden I wasn't sure I could bear. "Don't talk like that," I whispered fiercely, fighting back panic. "You're coming home too. You have to." Jackson appeared suddenly beside me, his eyes wide with urgency and determination. "We've got to move him now, Mark," he shouted above the relentless noise of battle. Together, we lifted Alex carefully, his agonized cries tearing at my heart with every movement. We stumbled through the mud and smoke, carrying Alex toward the medical station, adrenaline lending us desperate strength. My mind screamed in denial at the severity of Alex's injuries, unable to accept the thought of losing him. Finally reaching the medic tent, we gently placed Alex onto a stretcher. The medics swarmed around him immediately, assessing the damage quickly and gravely. One turned to us, expression solemn and severe. "The wound is infected badly," he informed us grimly, shaking his head. "If he doesn't get professional medical help soon, he risks losing the leg, or worse, his life." The brutal reality of his words crushed the last fragments of my composure. I sank to my knees beside Alex, gripping his hand tightly. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably as guilt, fear, and helplessness overwhelmed me. "Don't give up, Alex," I whispered brokenly, voice barely audible over the surrounding chaos. "Please hold on." Alex squeezed my hand weakly, his eyes meeting mine one last time with desperate determination. "Promise me, Mark. Promise you'll survive." His grip loosened slightly, and I felt a terrifying chill pass through me. I knew at that moment that Alex was slipping away, and all I could do was cling desperately to the fragile hope that we had done enough, that somehow, against all odds, he would survive. I remained frozen beside Alex, my heart shattering piece by piece with each weakening breath he took. The medical team worked frantically, voices urgent and tense, each second feeling like a cruel eternity. "We need to evacuate him immediately," the lead medic declared sharply, his voice cutting through my fog of despair. "He's critical. We can't handle this here." I stumbled to my feet, my body trembling uncontrollably. The grim reality struck me like a physical blow. Time was against us, and Alex's life hung by the thinnest thread imaginable. Jackson placed a comforting hand on my shoulder, his eyes filled with shared anguish and determination. "We won't let him go, Mark. He's one of us." The medic turned urgently to Captain Harris, who had just arrived, his face hardened by concern and responsibility. "Captain, we need immediate air evacuation," the medic stressed. "Every minute counts." Captain Harris nodded solemnly, his voice firm but betraying the depth of his emotion. "I'll call it in immediately. Keep him stable." Around us, the battlefield roared mercilessly, yet inside the medical tent, a desperate quiet enveloped us. Soldiers stood silently, their faces reflecting helplessness and fear for a comrade hanging between life and death. Alex stirred slightly, his eyes fluttering open, weakly finding mine once more. "Mark, don't blame yourself," he whispered faintly, each word strained but filled with sincerity. "Whatever happens, this isn't your fault. Promise, you'll fight." "Alex," I choked out, tears stinging painfully in my eyes, voice raw and filled with desperation. "You're going to make it. You have to." He offered a faint smile, his eyes growing distant, yet filled with an unspoken hope. I held onto his hand fiercely, willing every ounce of strength I had into him, as if sheer determination could save him. Suddenly, the distant thrum of helicopter blades reached our ears, bringing both hope and dread. Help was arriving, but would it be in time? "Helicopter inbound," someone shouted, urgency echoing through the tent. "Prepare for evacuation." The medics swiftly readied Alex, movements precise yet frantic. Every second seemed to stretch endlessly as the helicopter drew closer. I stood frozen in place, my heart pounding violently, eyes locked on Alex, silently praying it wasn't too late. As they rushed Alex toward the waiting helicopter, my feet finally moved, running desperately alongside, unwilling to let him face this moment alone. The medics loaded him swiftly, the blades deafening, drowning out my frantic shouts of encouragement. The helicopter lifted into the air, taking Alex's fragile life with it, leaving me standing helplessly below, watching as it disappeared into the chaotic sky. The dust settled slowly, reality crashing down on me. Alex was out of my hands now, his fate uncertain, suspended between life and death. The only thing left for me was to hold on to hope with every fiber of my being. My name is Mark, and now I face the unbearable torment of waiting.